Hey, how's everybody doing once again? So, I wanted to talk about how people, for the most part, always take their relationships for granted. And I say that because throughout life, the majority of us want someone who we can always depend on whenever may need someone to talk to about our problems, or to put it another way, someone who we may need to lend us a helping hand whenever, for instance, we may be in a financial bind, or if it may come a case when we may get stranded while driving and may need someone to come and assist us while we may be stranded or may have issues with our vehicles. Someone that's a really solid, close friend who we could just depend on no matter what issue we may be having. And from childhood, there are a few people that may have made friends or had friends from small childhood. I say from elementary school, all the way to adulthood. They may have been friends with those same exact people that they may have known all the way from middle school or elementary school, even um, way back from as far as kindergarten. And for the most part, most of us take our relationships for granted. That's how I see it, because I feel like, or the way I see it is, people that have been in long-term relationships, because relationships, I would say, are similar when it comes to taking our relationships for granted. It could be having a long term girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, even best friend. The way I see it, though, and just from my perspective, most people don't even much take out the time to give the Lord the credit for being able to have those same long term friendships or relationships for so many years. Instead, we just look at it from the perspective of that we're, due to us being able to relate so much and having so good of chemistry with the other person who we've been in on the same long term relationships with, or been friends with for X amount of years, that we'll just remain friends with those people for an eternity, or remaining relationships with those people for an eternity, only for there to become times when those same people who we may have thought were our long term friends end up falling out with us. Or there may be a case when that same friend person who you thought would remain a true, loyal, solid, long term friend. For instance, that same person who you may have met and first befriended in elementary school, middle school, or whatnot, or excuse me, my nose is kind of itching, but even someone who you may have been friends with as far back and made friends with as far back as kindergarten. It may come a case when you may be friends with that person all the way up into high school, only for after high school, in some cases, to stop hearing from that person, just to completely in contact with that person after taking this friendship with that person for granted, like you would be friends with that person for a lifelong eternity. And personally, I personally never have had a lifelong friend. By me being 40 years old, there are times when I wish that could have been in throughout school, from kindergarten all the way up in the high school to where I wish that I could have been the type that was more gregarious. For some of you who may not know what the word gregarious is, look it up in case you would like to know though. It's somebody that's very talkative, much more of a social butterfly, so to speak, more outgoing. And, you know, it's the type that never really meets a stranger. But for the most part, I wish that if I could turn back the hands of time from the time I was in kindergarten, from kindergarten, elementary school, middle school to high school, but I wish that I could have been a whole lot more talkative, a whole lot more of an outgoing person, because I feel like I kind of missed out on being able to form friendships with other people. Now, there were guys that I took classes with that I would talk to away from school from time to time. By the way, and I'm sure for some of you people who may be 37 and up, age 37 and older, you could relate to the time when we had landlines. For some of you younger people, much younger people who don't know what landlines are, just do a Google search on them and you will know what I mean, or your parents. I'm sure your parents would definitely be able to identify what a landline is. As some people in layman's terms would call them house phones, just to get a much more clearer understanding of what's meant by a landline. Anyway, there are just some people who think that they're the sum of all of their friendships, and I look at it from this perspective also. Some people think also just because you may be able to relate to a person, and speaking of which, some people even go as far as getting high on a regular basis just to be able to fit in, so to speak, and make friends with other people, getting drunk, stuff like that, so to speak, just to be able to fit in and make friends with other people. And in order to maintain friendships with other people, they like to continually just do those kind of things, partying, drinking, smoking, just to be able to maintain friends. And I look at that, some of you may agree with me, but then again, some of you may not. I look at that as a sign of insecurity. I mean, you may not agree with me on this, and some of you may take offense to this about how some people do those kind of things, even going as far as changing the way they dress just to be able to be accepted more by other people, going as far as getting tattoos, that kind of stuff. And I personally feel like if you have to do that just to maintain friendships or even start friendships with other people, then they aren't worth your time to begin with. But some people, for the most part, like to or hate to be alone and don't know how to cope when being alone. The reason they always have to do certain things just to be accepted by society for the most part. I also feel like those same people who you think are really your friends, even if you relate to them in every way possible, aren't really your friends. They're just associates for the most part, or people who you seem to relate to, but people who you can't really count on whenever you may need a helping hand. For instance, it may come a case where you may have to call that same person who you may consider your friend, your homie, or whatever other term or lingo you like to use as a friend, because we all have other terms that we use in the place of friends, whether it may be homeboy, homegirl. I'm sure you know what I mean, for some of you who could relate to where I'm coming from. But just think, for all of you who do have those kind of friends who you could count on no matter what time of day, night, no matter what kind of problem, issue you're having, just take out at least one day out of your time, out of some of your free time, to just thank God for those friendships, because it's very hard to come across a solid, loyal friend. And I say that because of my hardships of being able to form friendships with other guys. There have been times when, I wish I could be able to form friendships with other guys more closer to my age, but it's like they always do all they can to withdraw themselves from me. And I feel like one of the main parts is because I'm still an introvert in some ways, but there are other ways where I could have extroverted tendencies as well. Not only that, but I do all I can to draw myself much more closer to God by taking every day out of the week, even if I may just have to do it once a day, but I try to do it multiple times a day by serving Him, for the most part by praying to Him. And, it's been said in the Bible that the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. It also says in the book of Luke 18, verse 1, scripture 1 or verse 1, that men always have to pray and not faint. According to, if I'm not mistaken, the King James Version of the Holy Bible, due to how the Bible has all these different translations. Once again, for all you people who may have been friends with the same people for so many years that you may have known and been friends with as far back as kindergarten, elementary school, just thank the Lord for being able to be blessed to have those long-term friendships and relationships. For instance, my wife has been had friends with some of her girlfriends for as far back as elementary school, middle school, until this day they still talk every day or almost every day. And there are times when I will be jealous and envious of my wife due to how it's more harder for me to be able to form relationships with other guys. And I always, for the most part, have had a hard time making friends with some of my peers due to how I always have been a withdrawn and reserved person for the most part. That's just how I am, and that's what kind of family, for the most part, I have came from, or I come from, to put it another way. Not only that, but both of my parents, who have been married for 50-something years, have always been more of the reserved and quiet type. Anyway, I'm going to conclude this video, and I wanted to get your comments on this particular topic, how you never ever should take your friendships for granted. And for some of you people, once again, who have had the same amount of friends that you have been knowing for a very long time, still associate with them until this day, although there really isn't a such thing as a friend, because just like you came into this world alone, whether you know it or not, a lot of you will end up leaving this world alone. After all, you can't take those same friends with you. And not only that, but I'm going even more deeper than that. To really determine if a person meant you any good once you were to die, leave this world and die, get put 6 feet down under, those same people who you thought was your friends, who you rolled with, who you got high with, got drunk with, even went as far as going to jail for and taking the blame for, because some people do that as well. If you were to pass away right now, that same person may not even much come to your funeral, or may not even much come to your grave to put flowers around your grave either. Look at it from that angle as well. So I'm going to once again conclude this video. So also don't forget to like the video, share it with family, so-called friends. Once again, there's no such thing as a friend in this world, especially in these days of times, because there's a whole lot of cutthroat people as well, although I digress. Last but not least, subscribe to the channel, because I will be receiving, or excuse me, making more future content as well. And till next time, have a blessed day.